All right. Well, good morning, everyone. Let's see. It's already April. Wow. Going by fast already. I'd like to welcome everybody to today. We're going to talk about what are OneDrive, Teams, SharePoint, how they work together, kind of what the differences are in them. Today, you'll notice we have a new person on screen here, Lisa Friesman. She is a new trainer that's going to be working with me. Yay. I have some help. Welcome, Lisa.
Hello, good day.
Hello. All right. So you'll be seeing more of Lisa. She's just kind of getting started. She's going to get up to speed here, hopefully quickly, and start offering some courses, a lot of introductory courses, and then we'll get everything rolling. So let me go ahead and share my screen, and we'll get started on today's topic. Okay, you should see my screen now.
Yes.
So Lisa, I'm going to ask you, since right now you're the only one on the line, if you have questions or anything that people might have as we go through this talk, please just go ahead and ask them. We'll keep it informal.
Sounds good.
For those of you who don't know me, my name is Greg Kelly. You can always reach out to the Lisa Friesman or Greg Kelly on Teams chat is the best way to reach us. You can also go out to our site at doit.missouri.edu and click on the training link. When you do that, you'll see this window pop up. We do have a Teams Talk Tuesday. You can click on that. That'll give you more information about our Teams Talk Tuesday where we meet once a month. You can also click on the Microsoft 365 link, and that's where it'll come up with a list of scheduled trainings that we have going on. There's also some, if you kind of read in the small print, and we'll need to improve that, but a way to find pre-recorded trainings like what we're doing today. Of different topics. The last one is the calendar icon, and you can click on that image to book training sessions. So maybe your group has a specific need, some training or consultation you would like to have from Lisa or I, and we could either help you remotely, or if you're in the Columbia campus, we'd be happy to come out and help your group. So, all right, well, let's just jump to the next slide. The agenda for today, we're going to talk about what is cloud storage and its benefits. We're going to talk about the difference between OneDrive, SharePoint, and Teams. Just give you maybe a little overview of OneDrive and introduction to Microsoft Teams, and when things are stored in SharePoint or Teams, and when things are stored within OneDrive when you're working within Microsoft Teams. So we'll talk about that later, but depending on where you're working at within Teams determines on where your data is actually stored. And then usually at the end, we'll have a little Q&A, but we'll do that as we go along. Okay, just a brief overview of cloud storage. So a lot of people are asking, where is this cloud storage at? Sometimes I don't trust cloud storage because I don't know where it's being stored. Because we're used to having our file servers, like at the University of Missouri, we had local file servers, or maybe over at Datacom or somewhere at least on campus. Well, Microsoft has the cloud storage is really just data warehouses. So there's a lot of file servers and stuff in these big data warehouses, right? But they're all around the world, and specifically for us, they're across the United States. All right, you might have it from all the way from California out to New York, down to Houston, up to Minnesota or something. But it's all, the next bullet point says the data is replicated. So you don't have to worry about your file server going down, or, if there's an update, they don't have to take it down to update the file server. So it's replicated across the different data warehouses. And so it's always available. It's also secure. We now just log in with our university credentials, but it's also, the next bullet point is DCL level 4. It's kind of a geeky way to say data classification level is what DCL. Level 4 is you can store secure, confident information like maybe student records or social security numbers. It meets that qualification, but before you do that, you want to make sure that it's set up correctly, because being the cloud, you're able to share it with other people easily. So we want to make sure if you do that, that your security is set up correctly. So you might check with your IT pro or somebody just to make sure that the right people have access to it, and also the right people aren't sharing out. So if I give somebody access to share it out, then they need to know how to keep that secure. Okay. Some benefits of cloud storage. What's nice about this is we get a lot of storage. So everybody at the University of Missouri has a OneDrive, whether you know it or not. OneDrive comes with Windows operating system, 10 or 11, whatever you're using. On the Mac side, it's a free app you can download and on your mobile device. So I can get it from my tablet or, of course, my phone. But you get 5 terabytes. 5 terabytes, you could think of it as a lot of the desktops, some of those desktops that you have, the desktop computers, they get 500 gig, which is half a terabyte. So you get 10 times the storage of OneDrive than you do on your local computer. And we'll talk about how that works as, you could, I guess, theoretically fill up your hard drive if you bring everything down from the cloud, but we'll talk about how that all works. So you're not going to run out of storage anytime soon, but it's nice because you can back up your computer to the cloud. So if heaven forbid, because I use a laptop, if I drop it or something happens, it crashes, my data is safe. So I can get another computer and I can easily get all my data back. So that's one nice thing about having things backed up. And then with team storage or SharePoint storage, when you create a team, and again, anybody at the university can create a team, for each team you create, you get 25 terabytes of storage because you have multiple people working and storing data. So you get a lot of storage when you create a team. You can access your data from anywhere. So you can, like I said, you can have your mobile device. You can go out to the cloud on a web browser. You can just go out to office.com and you can get to your OneDrive or your Teams application, which gets you to the data that you need. So you can access it from anywhere. No VPN needed. That VPN, if you remember right now, if you have a file server and you're off campus, you would have to use that VPN AnyConnect is what we used to get to your data. You had to connect to it first, and then you could access your data, right? Well, with the cloud storage, you don't need to do that. As I mentioned, you can go out to office.com and access your data or have it on your mobile device. Collaboration. So with Teams, you can post messages back and forth. So you can collaborate. You can collaborate on files using Office 365 or Microsoft 365, which has Word and Excel. So I could be an Excel document, Lisa could be in the same Excel document, and we could have multiple people in the same document collaborating, making all the changes. Right now, if you're on a file server and Lisa was in the Excel document, I would have to say, hey, Lisa, I need to make changes in this. Can you exit out of Excel, close out of it so I can get into that document? Well, with cloud storage, we can all be in the same document at the same time. Version history, I will show you, and I'll have Lisa remind me. We will show you how you can get to the version of the document. This is important, right? Since we can collaborate on the same document at the same time, we want to make sure that we can go back and get a previous version. And I'll just throw out, you can go back 500 versions of a document, which is a lot of versions. And you can also recover your data. Right now on a file server, if you accidentally fell for that phishing scam where all your document names have changed, and we had to do this where Lisa and I used to work at the College of Vet Medicine because somebody fell for that and they had access to the shared drive. We were all shared storage, and it changed all our file names. So we had to go back to tape, restore that. But with OneDrive, we're able to go back up to 30 days and easily recover that data. Okay, well, we'll look at that. Okay, so OneDrive and SharePoint. So these are the locations where files are actually stored. They call it in the cloud. When Microsoft developed this, it was actually all just SharePoint. What I think they've done a good job. What Microsoft did, they kind of pulled out OneDrive. So you can kind of think of it as two different storage locations, okay? OneDrive, as the name indicates, is one storage. It's one person's individual storage. So they have their own storage, and it starts out as private, so nobody has access to it, which is nice, but it can be shared. So it starts out as private, and then you can share it out. You control your own storage, okay? And you get 5 terabytes, as I mentioned. Now, that's OneDrive. On the other side of the coin, we have SharePoint. And again, the name starts with share, so that's shared storage. So that's a shared or team or group storage. So it starts out that everybody on the group or the team, they have equal access to the file. So the group owns it. OneDrive, one person owns it. SharePoint, the group owns it. But you can restrict that down. So right now, if we have like 10 of us that own this storage in our group, we can restrict it down that only 2 or 3 have the access to, maybe it's HR records or some kind of private records that only a small group of you need to have. You can certainly restrict that down. Okay. So those are the 2 places where data can reside: OneDrive, SharePoint. So now we have Microsoft Teams. So Microsoft promotes Teams as the central hub for all communication and collaboration. So it's an application where we can go in and we can post messages, we can add files, we can add applications, we can get to our calendar, we can kind of do a lot of things. So when I create a team, behind Teams is a SharePoint site. So SharePoint, if I put files into a team, it stores it on a SharePoint site that's associated with the team. So if I name the team MU DoIT Training, then I have a SharePoint site called MU DoIT Training, and they're linked together. So when I store a file in Teams, it's actually being stored in SharePoint. But Teams allows me, again, to post messages. It's just another interface into SharePoint. Plus, I can add a lot more things to Teams, okay? I hope I made that, Lisa, did I make that clear enough?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so SharePoint is just the back engine, the background for Teams, and that pretty much says it all.
Yeah. It's just the back end. So I think Teams is just an easier interface. SharePoint's been around, and some people had a little difficulty using it, and Teams is a front end into it, but you can do a lot more things in Teams. Okay. So I went to a conference, Microsoft conference, and this is kind of because people were like, well, when do I put things in OneDrive, or when do I put it in Teams or SharePoint? When I say Teams and SharePoint, of course, just understand that's the same thing. Okay. So they showed us this. So if maybe I have an idea, I'm working on my laptop or my computer, I have an idea, and maybe I'm getting things from, ideas from email messages, and I'm getting the files on my OneDrive. So I have this idea now so I own this. Now when a group, like we need to own it and work on it together, then I will transition. I will move the files into a team. You maybe create a team, or if there's a team already there, I will give access to the team. So I'll give the team the file. So now the team owns it. And now we can develop it, right? Once it's in that team or SharePoint site, you'll notice even through when it becomes a standard here at the university, it will stay on that SharePoint site because the SharePoint is a secure site and it can just reside there, okay? So that's kind of the flow of how things are developed. Okay, so let's go ahead and let me move a couple things around here. All right. So I'm going to start by showing you first. Let me open up, but I'm going to make sure that everybody has Microsoft 365. This is important. I'm just going to open up Microsoft Word. Now I'm showing you this on a Windows 11 computer. It doesn't matter if it's 10 or 11. And on a Mac, it'll be the same as far as looking at which application you're using. So I'm just going to open up Microsoft Word. So if you'd open that up. Now you should be able to see, I'm going to open up my training sessions here. you should be able to see if you're using 365, Microsoft 365, because you'll have an autosave here. If your document is stored on OneDrive or on SharePoint, which is in Teams, this autosave will be enabled by default. You can always turn it off if you wish, but if you open it up and you have a file here and it's not on by default, then that means your document is not saved in OneDrive or SharePoint, okay? So you won't have those features that I'm going to show you that we talked about. So you can always go to File and Save As. Since mine's already there, it says Save a Copy, but you can save it to your OneDrive or SharePoint, and that's what we encourage people to do. But we want to make sure that you're using Microsoft 365. The best way to check that is if you go to File at the top there on your menu bar and go down to Account, okay? When I click on Account, under Microsoft, your subscription should say Microsoft 365. And here it shows that I'm logged in with my university credentials. So it's university ID at umsystem.edu. And so you can also check and make sure there's no issues here. There's no red X's, or make sure you're connected to, of course, your OneDrive, and it says Site, which is SharePoint. And this is a good place to come to see if there's any updates needed. But the main thing here is make sure you're connected to, or you have this installed. If not, contact your IT pro. They can get it installed. Or you can go out to your software center if you want to try this. It's there, but if you're not comfortable using Software Center, reach out to your IT pro. But if you go to Software Center, by clicking on your Start menu, you can type in Software Center, and it should be on your desktop. Under your Software Center, there is a application called, I can't remember the exact name of it, but it's like 2019 to 365, Windows 60 or Office 365. But you might see something under Applications where you can fix that upgrade. Okay, they push that out, or talk to your IT pro. Okay, so now that we have Office 365, Microsoft 365, let me just show you a couple things within Word, because we have this now stored on our OneDrive or SharePoint. At the top here, I can see the name of the document that I've opened. If I drop that down with the drop arrow here, the down arrow, I can change the name if I wish. It shows me where it's stored at. It's stored on OneDrive. And here's where I find my version history. So I can easily click on this, and over on the right, you'll see, and I'm not going to scroll back 500 versions, but you can go back up to 500 versions of the document, because I can come up here and share the document, and I will see multiple people here with their, at the top, with their little icons and their initials, and I can see their cursors all over the screen, depending on how many I'm sharing. But let's say that I've shared this with Lisa, and she made changes that I didn't agree with. I can come back to a version prior to Lisa's changes, and then I can open up that version. So that's how you can easily go back and forth between versions. Okay. Let me close out of this. Now, I'm in the Windows side. We're used to using File Explorer, and on the Mac side, you'll see the same thing under Finder, right? So if I go to File Explorer, this is my Manila folder down here at the bottom. If I open up that Manila folder, we are used for years, if you use my Windows, you're used to working out of this environment. Like I said, it looks kind of the same under the Mac world under Finder. But you should see a OneDrive University of Missouri. This will show you that you're logged in. If you don't see it, you'll just want to click on the Windows icon, type in OneDrive, and then click on the OneDrive, and then you log in with your university credentials, okay? But when you're in OneDrive, let me just show you a couple of things. I'm going to select that. University, I will tell you, they have a policy that will automatically, for the Windows machines, I should add that, that will back up your desktop, your documents, and your pictures folders. There's some departments that don't allow that yet because they haven't moved everything. I think School of Medicine or some other at the hospital. But most everybody else has this this set up to back up. So you should see those, and then anything else you see here, you can easily add, just like you would typically. You can add a folder and move. You can drag and drop files into your OneDrive. But just know, on a Windows side, anything you save on your desktop, when I say it's backed up, it's actually what Microsoft does is move everything to the cloud, move everything to OneDrive, and then they sync it back down to your local computer as you request it. So if I look at my status symbol, the status column, let me scroll down here, you'll see 3 different status options. You'll see, in this case, you'll see a cloud. Let me see if I can zoom in a little bit here. Wow, okay, you can see that for sure. Oops. Okay, so you'll see a cloud, you'll see a green circle with a green check mark, or you'll see a dark green circle with a white check mark. So those are your 3 options. Now, all your data is in the cloud. The question is it only in the cloud, or is it always also a copy of it, a cached copy is what it's called, but a copy of it on your local computer? Now, if there's a copy on your local computer, then it's taking up space on your computer, right? If it's only in the cloud, then you're not taking up space. So this is how we were talking about. You get 10 times the storage in the cloud than you do on your local computer. So I can't have everything on my local computer because, again, it would fill up my hard drive. Okay, so the cloud here means this file is only in the cloud. This icon with the green check mark, green circle. So anytime you see a check mark, that means there's a copy of it on my local machine. So this means there's a copy available. This one means there's one that's always available. Now, the difference between these two, on Windows 10 and 11, I don't want to get too technical, but there's a program called Storage Sense. So it knows, hey, you haven't opened up this file in a while. And because of that, if you have a green circle with a green check mark, this means available. If you have this one that says available, if you haven't opened it in 90 days, it will move it back to the cloud for you, okay? This one means always available. So I have manually made a copy on my computer. If it's always available, then that storage sense will not move it back to the cloud. You have to manually move that back to the cloud, okay? So let me just show you a couple of things. I'm going to see. So if I shouldn't have clicked on that, it's opening up that document. Okay, so if it has a cloud, and as soon as I double click on it to open it, watch what happens here. It'll change that to a green check mark. That means it's downloading a copy to my computer. I got to zoom back out so I can see everything that's happening. What it did, it opened up a copy on my computer and I just closed it. But you notice it changed it to a green check mark. So it's files on demand. So if I need a file, it'll download it. Okay. Now let's say that I'm going to go on a trip. So now one thing I didn't mention is this one with the cloud, I have to have internet connection to get to that. So if I'm going to be traveling, or if I'm away from the internet, I don't have connection, then I will not be able to get to this file, okay? These files that have a check mark, I can get to them because there's a copy on my computer. So if I'm not connected, I can make changes. And then when I connect back to the internet, it will automatically sync for me, okay? Now, let's say I'm going to go on a trip and I want to make sure that I have all the files that I need. So I'm going to manually put those files on my computer. So I can easily create a folder, right? I've got one here, and I can put my files in there. Then I change that status to always available. The way that I do that, let me show you here on a file rather than doing a folder. It'd be a lot faster. So I can select a file or a folder. I'll right click on it, and then I can say, always keep on this device. It'll change that to a dark green, and now it's all the files in that folder or the file itself will always be available, okay? Now, once I'm done using it, maybe it's a large file, like here's a large file, here's 300 meg. Just so I don't just keep using my space up, I'll move that back to the cloud. I'll right click on that, and here's an option, say free up space. So now it moves it back to the cloud, and that's how you manually move it back to the cloud, okay? Okay, so that's all the information I want to share on that. The only other thing I want to talk about in here is sharing documents. So if I right click on a document, let me find one here. If I right click on it, in a Windows 11 environment, here's a share button. In a Windows 10 and on a Mac, you will see the share option. So this is how you share a document. And I always, right now, you can type in the email address for anybody outside the university or just the name because it'll pick it up from the global address book. You can also drop this down. This is where it says people you specify can view. And then you could type in, anyone. You have some options here. They can view it. You can set how long is this link good for? You can set an expiration date. And you can set a password, which I would, if you're using anyone, I would encourage, you cannot give them edit access because they don't have to log in. I would encourage you to consider an expiration date and a password, and then you can also block download. So if it's a PDF or a file you want them just to be able to view and not download, then you can block that. And you can look at the different options, University of Missouri and people you choose. You can give them edit access, okay? But I just want to show you that's where you do sharing. The primary thing I want to show you now is how does OneDrive, SharePoint, and Teams, again, work together? I'm going to open up Teams. All right. And hopefully you have a little basic understanding of Teams, but I'm going to come in here to the team that I created to play around with. And I encourage people to do this. Create your own team to use to play around and kind of learn teams so you don't damage any active real data. So here's my team. Now, if I come back over on this left side, this is my navigation bar. If I come to a chat, and I'm going to have a chat with Lisa, I'm going to start the chat, and here I'm going to type in Lisa's name. And now let's say that Lisa and I are talking here, and I want to send a file to Lisa. Now I can easily open up the Files tab, and I can drag and drop files in there. Or in a chat message, I can come down here to the attach, this little attach file, the paperclip. It says, do you want to upload it from this device or attach a cloud file? You'll notice that's a OneDrive. So if I attach a cloud file, well, let's back this up. If I upload a file from my device that is not on OneDrive, okay? So this is maybe I have a flash drive or something, or if I'm on a Mac or something and I have it on my desktop. Remember, on the Windows, it's already on the cloud. But for some reason, I have a file that's not in OneDrive. If I say upload it from my device, what it does, it will place it in a folder called Microsoft Teams Chat Files. If it doesn't already have that folder, it will create it for you. Okay, so this is important to know. Anytime I upload a file within a chat, it will place it in here if it's not already on the cloud. Okay. So, but if it's on the cloud, I can choose this. It'll go out to my OneDrive. And I will just find a file under my documents that I can share with Lisa. And we will just say this Chicago conference. So I'm going to share this with Lisa. I'm going to attach that. Now, when I attach a file, you'll notice some people don't catch this, but it says people in this chat with the link can view the document. So when I say attach this, it's not putting a copy on there. It is pointing back to my OneDrive. So that file that I'm attaching, it's still on my OneDrive. Okay. And if I want Lisa to edit it, I have to click on this down arrow and I can say, okay, people currently in this chat right now, they can view it, or I can say, I want Lisa either to review it so she can make suggestions or she can edit it. Okay. And I trust Lisa not to edit this, but I forgot what file I picked. Oh, my Chicago, that's last year. We're good. Okay. So then I could type the message. Now this is called my Chicago conference, and I can type a message or just send it. Now when I send that, she can open it from here, or she can go to the files tab within our chat. Okay. And here's the Chicago conference. So it shows that I just now shared that. So we don't have to scroll. The benefit of having it here, as we have more conversations, we don't have to scroll way up here to find our files. We can easily come here, find the files, and now we can both, at least if you would open that, we could both open this document, and Lisa's in here. We can both collaborate. So here's Lisa. I can see her cursor here, and go ahead and type something. We can be typing in here at the same time. So you can see Lisa up there. FL, that reminds me of Florida. It'd be a nice place to be. So here we're typing. That's how we can collaborate. And again, her icon is here. So just know that this is an active file, but in a chat, it remains in my OneDrive, either in the original location or under that folder called Microsoft Teams Chat Files. Okay. Now, when we get into a team, now this is my team. I will come up to it's one of my channels here. I'm in this channel. And let's say I have a new conversation. I'm going to share a file now with my team. So the same thing, I have a files tab and I can drag and drop it, or I can come down here to the paperclip. Now it says, do you want to upload it from your computer? If I do that, it'll place it into the Teams channel and the team becomes the owner. It's no longer on my OneDrive or wherever I copy it from. It's a copy of it, so I have the original. But so it'll make a copy. If I use OneDrive, if I say I want to add a file from my OneDrive, now if I come down here and I pick out a file, I'll pick out this drawing, I have an option. Do you want to upload a copy, meaning I'll keep the original in my OneDrive, and the team will now have a copy of it where they can work on it and do whatever they want with this file. Or I can share a link, meaning it's all going to point back to the file in the original location, which is my OneDrive. So if I say I want to share a link, I get the same option. So maybe I want to show this to people. So let me, again, click this down arrow. Only people in Greg's personal workspace, so the team members, they can view this document. So maybe I just want to show it. So that's kind of the big difference. If you want to just show people a document, keep it in your OneDrive and let them view it. But you can also keep it in your OneDrive and say you have edit permission, but you're editing the original document that's in my OneDrive. Okay. So when you have it on OneDrive, you have the option of either a link, or you can give them edit to the document that still resides in your OneDrive, so you have control. The downside of doing it this way is, let's say that we've been working on it as a team, it's in my OneDrive, and I take another job, or I leave university. That team loses that document. So it all comes down to the ownership of the document. So if it needs to be owned by a team or maybe a department, then you definitely want to place that document into that team or into that channel. Okay. Another thing I want to be sure to mention, because this is something you'll start hearing about that's really coming out, and Microsoft will be doing a big push on this. I'm going to go back to the chat. One thing that Lisa and I was talking about before we started this is there's Microsoft Loop. Right now, Microsoft Loop is under 4 different options that you can do. One of the options is within a Teams chat. So within the chat, right next to attach a file, there's Loop. There's a loop component. So I can start a loop within a chat, and I'm not going to get too technical about this, but I just want to do, let's say that I'm going to do a task list. And everybody on the chat is who I can assign these tasks to. This loop is going to be called our loop party. And it says people, specific people with the link can edit. So as long as they have access to this loop, which is a loop file, they can make edits, and it's live edit. So if I can say, of course, you got to have food at the party, and you got to have party hats. Oops. And then I can assign it to people. Of course, I hit the add here, and it'll only pick up people that's in my chat. So I'll assign that to Lisa, and I'll assign this one to me. And you can set dates. And since I will tell you as an added bonus, since this is a task, if you use Task by Planner and To Do, it will go into that. Okay, so I'm going to add this loop to our chat. I'm going to hit send. So what this creates is another file. It's called a fluid file, the loop party fluid file. The reason I bring this up is I can now use email. I can pass around the fluid file. Anybody who has access can edit this file, but this file also resides in the person who created it. So if I go back to my OneDrive, it will be under that Microsoft Teams chat files. That is where that fluid file resides. It was called the loop party or something, wasn't it? There, loop party fluid file. So I just want you to know where those files reside. It's in my OneDrive again, so the team does not own it. Now, there's an applet, and you see Lisa can make changes here. Yay, she's bringing ice. So down here at the bottom, you know, I have, I think there's a training coming up just for Loop, and I'll show you all the stuff that you can do and how you can pass this around. I just wanted to show you as far as storage, where this is stored at, okay? The last thing I want to show, if I'm in Teams, like I said, we are used to working in this environment, right? Our File Explorer. And maybe you have an application in your department or that you use in your work that you have to access the files here because maybe you don't, not everything you use is Microsoft 365. So you have to access your files locally. In other words, you might have files in Teams that you can't easily access, and you don't want to download it and upload it to, to your application, because that kind of gets things out of sync. The best way to do this is, let me find a channel here that has some files. Okay, here's a file here. An Excel file. What we suggest doing is not to sync this. That was kind of the old way of doing it, and you can do it that way. We suggest adding a shortcut to OneDrive. So you can come to the channel, or you could even drill down. So maybe here I have some folders. I could drill down maybe to this recordings folder. Then I can add that shortcut to the recordings folder to my OneDrive. Okay, so you can do it at a folder level or at a channel level. So let me just come back here and show you. DDC5. So I can say add a shortcut to OneDrive. What that will do, it will add that DDC5 to my OneDrive. The nice thing about that, instead of a sync will only sync it to that one computer for that one user. If I add a shortcut to OneDrive, it's in my OneDrive and it follows me around as long as I can access it in my OneDrive. So if I come back here to OneDrive, It's not here yet, but you will see a folder, a shortcut, and it's just a link. It points back to the, here it comes. You see a little link icon. Let me try to zoom in one more time here. You will see a little link icon on the folder itself. That just means it's a link, it's a pointer back, and on the share, it just means you see it's pointing back, okay? So now if I open that up, it's actually the same files you'll see in Teams or SharePoint. It's pointing back to that site. So anything that I add here, so if I say a new Word document test. And now if I go back to my team, let me refresh this. You'll see that document come in here, and that'll be renamed here in a second as it syncs back. But just know that you can easily access your files from your OneDrive. So now that application, it can use the same files that you have in Teams, but you're doing it from a local computer. Okay.
All right, I have a question for you,
Yes.
Greg.
Yes.
So what if you are going somewhere that has no internet and you want access to those files that you linked to your OneDrive, the shortcut? What do you need to do in order to still access those offline?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm glad you brought that up. So this just works just like your other OneDrive. So these files, like this one here, was already in the cloud. This I created on this local computer. So the status works the same. So if I need this file to be sure that I have it when I don't have connection, I could right click on this, select this file, right click on it, and say always keep on this device. So that'll change that a copy on this local machine that's being pointed back to that. So it does bring a copy down here. And if you have a lot of them, like I said, you can create a folder. So I could right click and say a new folder and just call it, available. And then you can, go ahead.
I'm sorry. So you can do that at the shortcut level, not just the file level?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So you can treat this shortcut level just like you would in Teams, because it's just pointing back to Teams. So now I can move all these files into available and then make this one as always keep on this device. So now if I go back to my team, here's my, it's all syncing back here. Let me, here's available, here's test. So you can do it at either location. Once you have the shortcut, that shortcut is just pointing back to this SharePoint site, which is actually within Teams. And I'm glad you asked that question, Lisa. One thing I did not show that I need to, let's say here, I keep talking about this is actually SharePoint. So this is actually kind of pointing back to SharePoint. So now we have this folder is in OneDrive that's pointing to SharePoint, but this is also pointing to SharePoint. At the top, you'll see an option within Files. So if I'm in this channel, here's Files. Here's an option that says Open in SharePoint. If you're kind of minimized, you may not see it. So you'll see 3 dots here, and you'll see the option Open in SharePoint. So I want to do that just to show you where your data is actually being stored. So this is where my SharePoint site for my team. So you'll notice here's my team, and I'm in the DDC5 channel, and here's where the files are actually stored. So if there's ever an issue and you don't see it in your OneDrive or your Teams, you can come out to office.com and or you can come here to the SharePoint site. Let me go back one level. This under Documents, you'll notice it's called a document library. Every channel, these are channels, in the document library is just another folder. So here's my DDC5, and you'll see my general. So, and now I'm not going to go into this, but this is how you can control access to channels and to folders to restrict it down further. That by default, everybody on your team has access, but this is where I can come and restrict it further. So this DDC5, I can see those files right here. And I can add folders here. So if I add them here, it'll show up on those other links that I had mentioned. Now, I'm going to go up here because I did not show you where the OneDrive stuff is actually stored, and I did not show how to restore files. Up here at the top left, it's the app launcher. I call it the waffle menu. So if you go to office.com, you will see this, and you probably have seen this before. When you go to office.com, you'll see welcome to Microsoft 365, and you see this. So you can easily go to OneDrive. If you don't see it in your navigation bar, you can come up here to the app launcher, waffle menu, and click on OneDrive. So this is where your OneDrive files are stored. Okay, this is the cloud, the scary cloud. Right now it just says home. If you click on My Files over here on the navigation bar, this is where you'll see all your files. This link, again, it shows where it goes. Okay, it shows you here where it's actually pointing to. Okay, I don't know if I have any other ones. I don't. And there's other features out here, but what I wanted to show you, two more things. If you delete a file in OneDrive, you might expect it to see in your trash on your desktop. You'll have to come out to where your files are actually stored. In the cloud, OneDrive, click on Recycle Bin. So this is where all my files are stored, this location. Not stored, this is where my Recycle Bin is, where they're deleted. There we go. Wow. Okay, here's the Recycle Bin. Again, here's the name, who deleted it. So if I select this, and this is where it came from, if I select this, you'll see an option to restore, and you can do multiple restores or click at the top and restore everything. Okay. The gearbox, if I select that, wow, here we go. Restore your OneDrive. Instead of trying to figure out, remember what day it happened, because you can go back up to 30 days. I drop this down and choose a custom date and time, because it gives you a visual look. And I can say, oh, wow, starts at 0. So 7 days ago, a lot of things changed. So that's probably when that scam hit me. I can take this slider bar and I can slide it back to my 6. And I can see, oh, yeah, right here is where the difference is. So I can select this point forward and hit restore. It'll restore from that point forward, everything back to the original file. Okay. I'm going to cancel that restore because I definitely don't want to restore my OneDrive. All right. Well, Lisa, can you think of anything else that we need to touch on? I see we are an hour into it.
When you restore, does it automatically change the original document, or does it make a copy?
No, it'll restore everything back to that date. So yes.
So the original document will be the original file that's restored, not a copy.
It will be, because once a virus hits, they're not sure what damage might have happened. So yeah, it goes back to that date. So if you made a bunch of changes after that date, those changes will be lost.
Yep.
And hopefully, hopefully if you go in to change a document, hopefully that's when you'll notice, hey, there was some damage done. So yeah, that's a good question. All right, well, I thank you guys, and I hope you found this beneficial. And if you, like I said, if you need more training or consultation, be sure to reach out to us either on Teams, a chat, or just reach out to us on that website, that doit.missouri.edu/training. Hope to see you at the next training.